Elac Debut 3.0 DB63. Is this the best speaker under $1,000? Hi, and welcome to Hunter-Gray-LUV-Music. I started this channel because I want to help you reach your hi-fi happy place, because I think music is awesome. And listening to my favorite music is super important to me. Listening to music anchors my daily life. And that means I want my music to sound beautiful when I play it. So that's why we are here talking about hi-fi gear, because your hi-fi gear and my hi-fi gear helps or hurts how the music that we love sounds. You may want to take a quick look down below in the description where I explain what I am listening for. And when I evaluate speakers, amps, and DACs, I explain what my process is for evaluating and comparing, and the details of my two listening rooms and their dimensions, because I think that's valuable for you to understand. I also explain my typical listening volumes and decibel levels, and a couple of, I think, important FYI notes for you. And you may find them interesting. So let's slow down for a few minutes and enjoy while we have a chat about the Elac Debut 3.0. I really like these speakers, and I was super surprised. So let's do a quick rundown of the specs for these. The Debut 3.0 just recently came out. They're only available still through the Elac website. They are $450 for a pair, which after listening to them, I'm going to tell you that's a steal. These are a two-way stand mount speaker, 1-inch tweeter, 6.5-inch woofer. They are 6 ohms. They have an 87 dB sensitivity. They have a stated frequency range from 42 to 38,000 hertz. I'll talk a little bit more about manufacturer stated specs and how accurate those are or cannot be. Crossover frequency is at 2,000 hertz, which is notable to me because that's low, and I like it when a tweeter's crossover is lower. And yeah, I think that's a good thing. These are actually a pretty big, for $450, I was expecting a little, almost a near field, computer desktop kind of thing. But these weigh 17.3 pounds, and they're physically a pretty big speaker, bigger than I expected. They're basically 13 inches high and 8 inches wide and a foot deep. And yeah, they're for a stand mount, they're a substantial speaker. These are a great example of the difference between low cost and cheap, because these are low cost at $450 a pair, but they are not cheap. They're really well built. I was super, I gotta say, surprised as well as impressed. Now, as I've said before, I'm a real fan of Crutchfield, and they give you a 60-day in-home trial period, which I highly value, because you just got to listen for yourself in your own space with your own music to really be able to evaluate any gear, speakers, DACs, amplifiers, whatever. Because the beauty is in the eye of the beholder and in the ear of the beholder. So speaking about beauty in the eye of the beholder, I'm not really going to run over their looks or attractiveness. That's up to you. You can see photos online and see if they look good to you and if they fit your home decor. I think these they're what I would call nondescript. They're not going to bother me in the home decor in the all black here. They're just nondescript. They're not gorgeous, but they're not going to be a problem in, I think, most decor settings, because they're just sort of a neutral black. Also, in my reviews, I'm only going to really comment on build quality at the extreme ends of the spectrum. If it's really bad and shabby, or if I'm particularly wowed by it. And I'm very happy with how these are built. And they, for $450 a pair, they have completely exceeded my expectations for their build quality. So just another area where I was surprised. So let's talk about speaker setup. These were really quite easy to set up to get a nice phantom center image. I settled on just barely towed in towards them very slightly. I positioned them 9 inches from the wall behind them and 8 feet wide apart. And I didn't find changing their position changed the soundstage they were throwing out. It was good enough, but it didn't wow me with their soundstage, but it was good enough. But the big upside surprise for me was all right, I'm going to have to admit to having a bit of a negative bias towards low-priced speakers. And I have a tendency to think speakers that are under $1,000 just can't possibly sound legitimately good. Can they really produce audiophile level music reproduction? I tend to be a skeptic, but maybe I'm an audiophile snob. I'm okay with accepting that that label. But can an inexpensive speaker sound okay for real? Can an inexpensive speaker sound good? I've had my doubts, but I got to tell you, yes, this $450 pair of speakers, they produce audiophile level sound. Yeah, they really do. I'm surprised. I'm really surprised. These punch so far above their cost at $450. So let's talk about detail retrieval and presentation. I want to hear everything that is in the recording. What sent me down this road to becoming an audiophile is having the experience of hearing a song that I knew really well and I had heard so many times, and then I heard something new in the recording, something I had never heard before in that song. And I realized it was because the hi-fi systems I was hearing the song on this time was giving me detail retrieval that I hadn't heard before, even though it was in the recording. Those experiences for me changed everything. I realized I really wanted to hear everything that was in the recording. When I play my music on a hi-fi system, if it's in the original recording, I want to hear it. One more brief word on detail retrieval versus presentation. 3 pairs of speakers may each have top-notch detail retrieval in terms of revealing to us everything that's in the recording. As I said, that's super important. But also, each of those 3 pairs of speakers may present the music to us in significantly different ways. For example, neutral or colored or fun. Let's use an analogy. If we took a passage of text from a play and asked 3 different actors to read the same passage word for word, i.e. 100% detail retrieval, but one reading is kind of boring, and a second reading keeps your attention, keeps you engaged, and a third reading by an actor adds excitement and some dramatic flair and really keeps you entertained. Same words, i.e. detail retrieval, but different presentation of those words. That's the sound profile or coloration. These Elac Debut 3.0 have presentation of the detail retrieval that keeps my attention. They're not neutral. They're not boring. They keep me engaged in the music. And I like that. That's important to me. I have sort of moved beyond flat, neutral studio monitor that doesn't keep me engaged. Hi, babe. And listening. I want it to control my attention and keep me engaged. So my preconceived notion of these speakers may have been based on their price point at 450 bucks. These produce the sound that competes with speakers 3x that price, maybe more than that. That was a surprise to me. Soundstage. I want to hear the music in the room, not just coming from the speakers. The soundstage was good on these Debut 3.0, but not as impressive as the bass and the treble that I was hearing. So the soundstage is good, passable, but not really impressive. I'd grade the soundstage on these at a B minus. It's good, but it did not wow me like the detail retrieval and the tonality and the bass response and overall musicality did. However, I was able to easily get a very clear phantom center image, and the speakers, the setup wasn't hard to get that phantom center image that I was pleased with. So I would say that the setup was easy. I don't think you're going to have an issue getting the soundstage and the center image that you want. However, I do want to note when I switched these over to play on my reference 300B single-ended trio tube amp, the Rysong A50 MK3, the soundstage opened up, became more deep, and was more impressive, which means these did scale with better amplification, because I do most of my initial listening on my reference Class D XTZ Edge Class D, very neutral, clean amp. Let's talk about treble. I don't like treble glare. Like when your eyes wince when you step out into bright sunlight without your sunglasses. And I don't like it when the treble makes me wince like that. Miles Davis muted trumpet on Someday My Prince Will Come has a lot of treble energy, and it's easy to produce that treble glare. There was no treble glare on these at all. It was excellent. There was a very smooth treble presentation. I thought it was actually above average. It actually produced that sweetness and that richness, not just smoothness. I was very happy. Also, Sarah McLachlan's song Angel, her voice covers a full 3 octaves, and her notes in this song, she hits, with a lot of energy and a lot of strength. And it's a really good evaluation for treble energy, because it can also be sibilant or create that treble glare. And there was none of that from the Elac. The highs are smooth, and there was never any treble glare. The highs on Nelson Rangel's I Loved You that I use, which is nothing but a grand piano and Nelson Rangel on his flute. And those very high flute notes, they're not only smooth, they are sweet, and they achieve from this Elac $450 speaker, they retain that ethereal nature, that beauty to those highs of his flute in that song, which is really hard to do. It's like, first, I can't have treble glare. It needs to be smooth. But it's exceptional when a speaker can give me that beauty and that ethereal nature in his flute on that song. I was super impressed with that. That's for $450 a pair set of speakers. That wowed me. That was super impressive. Maintaining not only the beauty but the sweetness that it adds, that was really nice. And so let's talk about also the tonality on that same song, I want to evaluate, does Nelson Rangel's flute on I Loved You sound like a flute with the beauty of a flute and the richness, or does it sound like a recorder? Do you remember a school recorder when you were in elementary school music class? The teacher would often use a recorder to demonstrate music, and these sounded like a flute. They had that tonality, that richness. It was fantastic. Like I said, I'm very surprised and impressed, wowed even by the treble on this. How about the bass tone? Does the tonality of the bass sound like a grand piano, or does it sound like an upright piano? And again, same two songs, Nelson Rangel's I Loved You, that piano, and Sarah McLachlan's Angel. Does the piano sound like a grand piano? Absolutely. The bass has a beautiful, rich tone to it. Piano sounds absolutely like a grand piano. The bass notes have that richness, that body, that fullness. Yeah. Again, a $450 a pair Elac Debut 3.0. I was not expecting the tonality, both in the bass and in the treble, that I could hear from these speakers. Super, super impressed and surprised, 100%. So that really got me want to look at, how about the bass extension? So they list the frequency down to 42 hertz, which on a stand mount two-way speaker, that's excellent. But I played bass tone or test tones. I can clearly hear a 35 hertz test tone from these speakers, loud and clear. So I tried a 30 hertz test tone. Well, I can hear it, but it's very rolled off. It's there. So I'm going to say these produce usable, hearable bass down to 35 hertz. To me, for music, that's super important, because you have to remember, when it comes to bass extension, below 30 hertz, 20 hertz to 30 hertz, that's not really music. That's vibration. Those are bass sounds that you need to hear for home theater and rumble, not for musicality. The only instruments that extend down to 35 hertz are church organ and really upright bass on an acoustic bass gets down to 35 hertz or so. So a two-way stand mount speaker that I can hear clearly a 35 hertz test tone, I think for music, you're going to be very satisfied without a subwoofer on these. Now, amount of bass, quantity of bass, that's a different thing. If you're listening to EDM and real dance music and you really want a lot of quantity of bass, you add a subwoofer. But for music, extension down to 35 hertz, do a ChatGPT search for instruments that create sounds below 35 hertz. It's only electronic synth that does that. No instruments. There are a couple of rare wind instruments, but all right. Again, impressed not only with the quality and the tonality of the bass, but the bass extension as well. So that brings us to comparisons. Well, and I trained myself to remind me when it comes to comparisons. Let me start first before I get into the comparisons. If you're enjoying my take on speakers, amps, DACs, streamers, headphones, IEMs, then I'd like to ask you to subscribe to this channel. It would really mean a lot to me. It helps the algorithm a ton if you click the like button. So I'd appreciate that. Please, if you have any audio buddies that are interested, share the video. That would be great. I am still growing the channel. I try to stay away from details that you can learn yourself online. I think my repeating that is a waste of your time. And instead, I focus on details that can only be discovered when you have a product here in person that I can actually listen to. So toward that end, I'm really hunting for, hi-fi gear that costs 2x, 3x, 4x of the product being reviewed, that punches well above their cost. So if you're able, please support the channel by joining my Patreon. There's a link in the description down below to the Patreon. There is a Patreon Telegram chat as well as Zoom meeting get-togethers for patrons. So please click on the patron link in the description and take a look. And I do also want to make you aware that some of the links in the description are affiliate links. They're a no-cost way for you to support the channel. It doesn't cost you anything when you click on the affiliate link. There's a general affiliate link that'll take you to the Amazon homepage, for instance. And then when you shop at Amazon, the channel will get a small commission, and it won't cost you anything, but it makes a big difference to the channel and is a great way, which is no cost to you, to support the channel. So I'd love to get to know you personally by joining my Patreon. That'd be great. Get to know you, get to know what your system is at home, what your end game system looks like, your Desert Isle system, and what part of your you might be considering and looking to upgrade in your system. Also, you could share with me what types of videos you'd like to see more of. Again, I thank you for your support of this channel. Now let's get into comparisons. I took a look at comparing these to the Klipsch RP600M Mark II and the KEF LS50 Meta. Price-wise, the best comparison is the Klipsch RP600M Mark II. These actually are less expensive at $450. The Klipsch list for $650, but they're often on sale for $500, $499. So the RP600M do not have the level of imaging, layering, instrument separation of these Elac Debut 3.0 in no way. The Elacs have imaging and layering and instrument separation way above their price point, as I've already said, way above that which you get with the RP600M Mark II. The Klipsch present beautifully vocals in the instrument that is soloing. Any part of the song that the recording engineer intends to be the focal point that is, pushed into the center channel sounds great. Clear, accurate, no treble glare or sibilance, and there's an excellent tonality to the bass and the treble on the Klipsch RP600M. The problem arises when it comes to the clarity, separation, imaging of the rest of the instruments playing in the song. Everything that is in the recording, I think, on the Klipsch is there, but it's muddled together. It's just mushed and recessed and veiled in the background in a way that just isn't satisfying to me. When I listen for details that I know are there in a recording on the Klipsch, I can find them, but I have to look for them, and they're not clearly presented. These other instruments are just not imaged and separated out clearly. On the other hand, on the Elac, the imaging and the layering and the separation is top notch. I can't believe what I'm hearing from a $450 pair of speakers. Really, really surprising to me, actually. So I would say if you're a buyer who currently has an excellent hi-fi system in your listening room or living room, and you may be shopping for a smaller, less costly system for, say, an office or your bedroom, I think you will hear what I'm describing if you bought the 600Ms, the Klipsch, and you would become disillusioned over time. On the other hand, if you're that type of buyer and you spent your money on these Elac Debut 3.0 DB63, I think you'll be very happy and quite amazed at the high level of sound reproduction that these, I was going to say little, but they're not little, these low cost $450 pair of speakers produce for you. Now, what about compared to my KEF LS50 Metas? Well, the Soundstage is significantly better on the KEF. It's deeper, it's wider, it produces and throws the Soundstage that I'm really a fan of and that I'm looking for on the KEFs. Also, the imaging and layer separation on the KEFs is very high end, and these on the Elac are excellent, but the KEF are some of the best imaging stand mounts, I think, on the market. And so the KEFs are high end and better than the Elac Debut 3.0 when it comes to imaging, layering, and separation. When I compare performance and price between two things like the Elacs and the KEFs, I like to consider the higher cost items, in this case the KEFs. That performance is the bar of 100%. And then I assess, as best I can, albeit subjectively, what percentage of the KEF's 100% can, in this case, the less expensive Elac Debut 3.0, what percentage level can these attain? In this comparison, I think the Elac Debut 3.0 attain, subjectively, 90% of the performance of my KEF LS50 Metas. At $1,600 a pair for the Metas, they are 3.5x the price of these Elac Debut 3.0. So the Elac is a very strong value proposition. I'm not going to replace my LS50 Metas with them, but at 90% of the performance for less than a third of the cost, I'll let you decide. Now, the question that I love to, my intellectual curiosity, will a low power tube amp drive these Elac 3.0s? I used my 7.6 watt per channel single-ended triode 300B tube amp from Rysong, the A50 Mark III. Can it drive them? Hell yes, beautifully. And these scale with that better, in my opinion, Class A tube amp. It increased the soundstage width and depth. It opened it up to not as good as the Metas, but the tube amp gave these a soundstage more like I'm looking for from speakers. I like a wide 360. I'm trying to get a holographic soundstage, and the single-ended triode 300B tube amp definitely opened up and improved the soundstage here. There was also an increase in bass that was very noticeable, more punch, and the tube amp always adds a magic element to the guitar strings. So when I play songs like Michael Bublé's Everything, there are guitar strings in there that just adds a beauty to the tonality that I'm getting from these Elacs. Now, I didn't like the 300B amp when I pushed the decibel level into the average of the low 90s. That I didn't like that. When I listened at my kind of volume levels, I loved how the Elac sounded on the 300B. Played at average DBs in the 70s with peaks in the 80s, 85 and below, really like 83, 84 and below. Those are really my typical listening levels. And through the Elacs, there was more of that tubiness. There was more soundstage. There was more bass. I think the phrase would be they scaled with the Class A tube amp. So for me, there was no sound, no downside when played on the tube amp at, as I described, those sound pressure levels. So, which, well, I guess I have to say I would choose playing these on the tube amp. So, with that, this has been my review of the Elac Debut 3.0 DB63, and I want to say thank you for watching. My goal is to help you reach your hi-fi happy place. My goal is to help you just relax and enjoy your hi-fi happy place. But what do you guys think? Please put your comments down below. What do you guys think of a $450 pair of speakers, the Elac Debut 3.0? Share your comments with me, please. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And most definitely, please come back to this channel and watch again. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you on the next video. Cheers for now.